What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here coming back at y'all with another 2 minute drill episode, man. It is here, March 25th, Thursday, almost the end of y'all's week. So hang in there, man. It's almost wrapped up. We get to the weekend, get back into March Madness. We have awesome D2 football to watch. So there's a lot to look forward to this weekend. So just hang in there. Make sure you just catch up on all um all Blue Bloods episodes, all 2 minute drill episodes, all that, man. It'll get you through the end of this week. We got a lot of content y'all can catch up on, but we got some bad news to start out with that, I hate talking about, but we got to address it here. We also have another pro day analysis, another DB who was really high on my board, absolutely showed out. So right the day after, I heap all this praise on Patrick Surtain and what he did. Jaycee Horn came out here and just put it all to shame. So we'll get into that, but we got to start in Athens, man. Georgia wide receiver George Pickens reportedly tore his ACL today. Former five-star wide receiver, probably gonna, based on everything that's come out, it's gonna require surgery, which probably means that Pickens is probably done for at least a regular season, probably the SEC championship. Might be able to make it back for like a national championship run or something like that, but it just kind of depends on where his head's at, how the surgery goes, things like that. It's way too early to maybe fully project, but just kind of based on the average time to recover from an ACL, George Pickens is probably out for the year. This is a huge loss for the Bulldogs, to say the least. I mean, Kirby Smart came out and addressed the media today. He said that the MRI showed that it was an isolated injury, no structural damage in the knee, which is always good to hear. But can't always cryptic, man. You never know what George Pickens is going to do to spice up a story or anything. On his Instagram today, he posted a completely black picture with just the word "bye" placed in the top corner on his Instagram story. So whether that means that he thinks he's out for the season, whether that means he's going to opt out, recover, and prepare for the NFL draft, no one really knows at this point, but Pickens is always so. As soon as you figure out what you think he's going to do, he does the complete opposite. Everyone thought he was going to Auburn, goes to Georgia. He is off the handle in the Georgia Tech game, gets suspended, all that. I mean, it's just one thing after another with Pickens. So who knows what that means? But it's an interesting development here. But he was expected to be the top returning wide receiver for the Bulldogs, and was probably expected to have his best season yet, especially with the emergence of JT Daniels. Only had him for 4 games last year due to just some questionable quarterback decisions, to say the least, by Kirby Smart. But these past 2 seasons, he's had over 1,200 receiving yards, 14 receiving touchdowns. And over the past 2 seasons for the Bulldogs, man, he's led them in receiving yards, receptions, receiving touchdowns for the season. So, I mean, he's been the top wide receiver in Athens for 2 years. This year, I feel like was going to be the pinnacle of his career, where he explodes, heads off to the NFL to be a potential top 10 pick. His last game for the Bulldogs potentially was that Cincinnati game in the Peach Bowl, had one of his best games of his career at that game, and really was a catalyst for them winning that game. He was supposed to be like the big play, the explosive threat for the Bulldogs on the outside of the wide receiving position, and he's been that for 2 years now. But I'm probably assuming he's played his last game for the Bulldogs, and it leaves many questions about what his potential could have been if he stayed healthy, if he stayed out of trouble, if he would have been 100% bought in all the time, and what would have happened if he had JT Daniels all year last year, or Jake Fromm doesn't struggle in his freshman year. The options though for the Bulldogs, the big question is where does Georgia go from here? And for me, I mean, they have plenty of options. The options are plentiful for them. They returned 6 of their top 7 pass catchers from the 2020 season. I mean, just some names to look out for: Karis Jackson, Jermaine Burton, Darnell Washington. Those are some names that I think you're going to see a lot in Athens this upcoming football season. They have a lot of guys with potential, but now it's up to them to live up to that potential. They're forced into the spotlight they're forced into a starting role and they have to contribute immediately. JT Daniels is going to have to rely on these guys to make impactful plays week in and week out through a brutal SEC schedule, a brutal non-conference schedule, and a potential playoff run, SEC championship run. Luckily, I think they're going to be okay because they have probably the best quarterback they've had since Matthew Stafford minimum. Maybe he might even be better than Stafford in terms of pure potential. He threw for over 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, and only 4 games of action last year. Now he gets a full offseason to connect with his teammates, master the offense, and honestly, the sky is the limit for JT Daniels. But this wide receiving core of this offense is going to have to grow up real quickly without Pickens. They have a week 1 matchup against Clemson that awaits them. There is no chance that if that unit is not at 100%, that they're going to win that game. That is a must. You have to play a perfect game to get out alive against Clemson right now, especially for where that program is right now. I think the Bulldogs are going to be fine moving forward. But a loss like Pickens cannot be overlooked, guys. I mean, to say that this is a big loss would be an understatement. This is one of the biggest losses that any team could suffer with their probably the best offensive player on that team. And if there was any other quarterback at that QB1 spot other than JT Daniels, I would be super concerned. If it was DeJuan Mathis, Stetson Bennett, Jake Fromm from a few years ago, I would be super concerned. But they have the talent to survive. They have the talent at running back, tight end, wide receiver, O-line. They have the coaching staff. They have the defense to keep them in games. This Georgia team is going to be okay. This is a horrible story, man. I wish the best for George Pickens and his recovery, and we'll see where he goes. But we'll update you guys as more news comes out about his recovery, his surgery, things like that. But I told y'all yesterday, man, we're getting into pro day. That draft is approaching super quickly. And, yesterday we covered Patrick Surtain and Rondale Moore, who both killed their pro days. Well, Jaycee Horn, South Carolina quarterback, had his today. There was a lot of eyes here, especially with Caleb Farley's questions, with Surtain putting up huge numbers yesterday. Horn was my number 2 cornerback coming into the draft. I know that was taboo at that, coming in because it was mostly Farley, Surtain. I just have a lot of concerns about Farley and his injuries and just his potential in general. But Jaycee Horn's always kind of been that third corner there. He probably has, I've read this a few places. I feel this way too. He might have the biggest upside of any cornerback in this class. And he put on an absolute show today that makes me think there's going to be a debate about who's 1, 2, and 3 in this cornerback class. It's going to be a lot deeper than people thought. Looking back at his career, man, he was a 3-year contributor for the Gamecocks. He played under one of the best defensive minds in college football in Will Muschamp. Over 100 total tackles, 7 for loss, 3 sacks, 2 picks, and 23 pass breakups. The kid was always in the play, making plays on the ball. That was just in 3 years at South Carolina. He was top 10 in the SEC in pass breakups both of the past 2 years. He was second team All-SEC this year. So this kid is accomplished. The film doesn't lie. He has the pedigree. He has everything that you want in a prospect. Well, he comes out, gets measured. He's 6 foot and 3/4, so just under 6'1", weighed 205 pounds. That's fine. I mean, he's a longer guy. He carries a lot of size. He plays very physical. So I don't think the size was really a surprise here or a downturn. I mean, it was just kind of what we expected. Well, then he goes to the 40-yard dash, runs a 4.39, blazing fast, outshines Patrick Surtain. I don't think Farley's running because of his injuries, but Farley, I don't know if would run any better than that. So he's probably the fastest, most athletic of the two. And then he goes out a 41.5-inch vertical and then 11 foot 1 inch broad jump, which blew everyone out of the water. I mean, he showed that he has the hops, he has the speed, he has the athleticism, the leg strength, everything that you want in a corner. Any intangible things that you can take from a pro day and these just random exercises, he put on tape and said, listen, I can do this. I'm the man here. And, I think he showed that he is arguably the most athletic DB in this class and that he can live up to all that amazing film he put out, especially this year in the 7 games he played in. He outperformed Surtain on almost everything in terms of pro day stuff. And the questions surrounding Farley and his health has caused a lot of people to look at this and be like, man, is Jaycee Horn DB1 here? And I think there's an argument to make there, depending on what you look for in a corner. I'm not ready to put him over Surtain, but I already had him second. I think he separated himself from Farley even more today. And, if you don't want to take my word for it, I get it. We're a smaller podcast, whatever, man. What do I know? Well, Jim Nagy, Senior Bowl Director, has a long history in scouting players, said that Jaycee Horn is his number one cornerback in the draft, and that Jaycee is a better press man coverage guy, off man defender, while he also thinks that Jaycee Horn is the most versatile defender compared to Surtain and Farley. And he also mentions, and this is something that Patrick Surtain has kind of a quiet confidence to him. I really don't get this with Farley as much. Jaycee Horn's confidence, swagger, the energy surrounding him when he's on that field is just different. And personally, I think he has that over Surtain and Farley, and that's something that Nagy mentions too. He mentions that the confidence and swagger he plays with is infectious. It pops off the screen. I mean, just throughout games, and for me, so I mean, y'all know Auburn fan here, Auburn graduate. That Auburn South Carolina game, really and truly, Jaycee Horn was the key to that victory for South Carolina over Auburn. He was the Walter Camp Player of the Week that week, 2 picks. He had more catches from Bo Nix than Auburn wide receivers that he was covering. That shows you how outstanding he played. That whole game, man, he played with such confidence. He had that swagger. I mean, this is when he really jumped on my screen, and I started paying attention to him real closely, and that's why he's my DB two right now, is because that game put him on my radar, and I got to go back and watch all that film he put on for the past 3 years, and I think this kid has a gigantic upside. And listen, I know Surtain, my number one cornerback prospect, but I think Horn, like I said earlier, has the highest upside of any DB prospect in this class. It doesn't come with negatives. Everybody has stuff that they can improve on. He needs to improve his fluidity and his movements. He sometimes gets a little stiff, and it really throws off his coverages. He also has those false steps because of that the lack of fluidity in his movements, and also his tackling could really improve. That Auburn game, even though his coverage was so great, he missed some big tackles, and just getting lost in the traffic could be a big problem for him at times. So if he can improve those things while also building on all his big strength, which is his physicality, his athleticism, his playmaking, his how he attacks the ball when it's in the air, being in the right spot at the right time. If all that can just keep improving, he can stay on this upward trajectory. This kid could be a real problem. He's gotten some comparisons to Fuller for the Bears, which I think he just left the Bears. But we're not an NFL podcast. That doesn't matter. I believe he just left the Bears, but he's been playing on the Bears for the past few years. My better comparison, just in terms of size and what he can do, and I think his upside is, I think he could be a Marshawn Lattimore type guy. They're about the similar size, had similar skill sets coming out of college. And, Marshawn Lattimore's lived up to the hype down in New Orleans. I think Jaycee Horn is that type of guy. I think he's a DB1, a shutdown corner, and he has a lot of potential. And so I think Marshawn Lattimore is a really nice comparison for Jaycee Horn. So we'll keep you all updated, but I think Jaycee Horn solidified himself as a top 2 DB prospect here today. And, let me know what y'all think. Where does Jaycee Horn rank in your DB rankings? What do you think about George Pickens' ACL tear? Where did the Bulldogs go? Does that change y'all's expectations for Georgia this year? Let me know in the comments. Man, let's get this thing going. I want to get y'all more interactive, man. I'll definitely be commenting back with y'all if y'all do. But, guys, that is a wrap on this 2-minute drill. But y'all know where y'all can find me. My Twitter handle's there. All the Blue Blood social media handles are scrolling below. Watching this on YouTube, of course, make sure to subscribe. It helps us out, helps grow this channel. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, man. That also helps us tremendously at getting this content out there, getting more and more eyes on this, and building this Blue Bloods family strong, man. And of course, we're inching closer and closer to 100 subscribers. Once we hit 100, I'll make a big thing of our first 100 subscribers, randomly pick 5, send y'all a big merch package of Blue Blood stuff. So make sure to subscribe. That way y'all are entered into the Blue Bloods giveaway once we hit 100 subscribers. But guys, I will be back tomorrow with our final 2-minute drill of the week. We also have an awesome interview for Northwestern coming out tomorrow as well. So make sure to check that out. But today it's just a 2-minute drill. So make sure to go catch up on the 2-minute drills this week, all our other Blue Bloods content. But for myself, for the Blue Bloods, and for the 2-minute drill, guys, we are out.